Hi, my name is Andrew Sellers, and this is Counting Frames. The Truman Show. Released in 1998, the film's premise of a reality TV show which runs 24/7, starring a man who is unaware that he is the star, put it years ahead of its time, granting the film an excellent shelf life thanks to some stellar performances, and overall, a stupendous execution of a plot which explores itself in full, right to the very end. But for years, I had this feeling that there was another layer to this cinematic cake that I couldn't quite figure out. I've come to realize that the film makes a pretty profound observation of human nature by showing how we try to understand ourselves and our place in the world. The premise of the show is simple, an observation of a life, Truman's life. While he is genuine, all else is scripted, supervised, and regularly altered by the creator of the show, known only as Christof. While it's evident that he represents the equivalent of a divine creator, he does not wield his power maliciously, until he tries to stop Truman from leaving. But after sporting a cool demeanor and steely gaze for the majority of the film, we see he has moments of genuine emotional affection for Truman. While we don't learn much about Christof, I believe his motivation in creating the show wasn't for money or fame, but for purpose. It's in his first conversation with Truman in the final scene where Christof attempts to justify the existence of Truman's world.
Listen to me, Truman. There's no more truth out there than there is in the world I created for you. Same lies, the same deceit. But in my world, you have nothing to fear.
For Christof, the lie is that our lives have meaning. Truman has nothing to fear because his purpose was created for him. By constructing a perfect world so that one person may live without this fear, the show gives hope, joy, and inspiration to millions. Truman's life, in turn, fulfills Christof's. But his choice to seize control over another person's life is a response based in fear of what many see as a hopeless truth. Truman spends the majority of his life believing he's ordinary, that he's just another member of a small beach community. Having found his place in the world, or so he'd think, one would imagine Truman would be happy with his life. He has a career, a wife, a car, a house. Add all of these elements together, and you have a secure lifestyle, which is one of Truman's overbearing priorities. He refuses to board a ferry to a nearby island for his job because of his fear of water. As viewers, we know his aquaphobia is just another form of manipulation on Christof's part. But unaware of the truth, Truman chose to disregard any potential consequences this choice might have brought him. Another point that I think speaks to Truman's lifestyle of safety is the fact that he's an insurance salesman. Like Christof, he sells people a sense of control over something we ultimately don't: life. He provides comfort and security in the face of the unknown. Questions of what could be riddle the mind with hopes and worries, so we eliminate as many variables as possible. For the questions that are left over, we look for answers wherever we can find them. Now, you can chalk this up to continuity error, but I think this is subtly identified with the simple object of a magic 8-ball on Truman's desk. We see it here, when uncertainty still plagues Truman's life. But later in the film, after Truman is reunited with his father and is determined that something is undeniably amiss, the 8-ball is gone. His need for a safer life is replaced with a conviction to conquer the unknown. This would put him on the path to becoming a truer version of himself, allowing him to grow past the confines of his microcosm. Christof reached his point of true being when he successfully started the show. He realized himself and took action to execute his vision, fulfilling his self-determined purpose. But his mistake was to rob another of their ability to create their own purpose. Christof's role as a creator is as much a form of self-deception as is Truman's acceptance of his home. As a result, Truman feels incomplete because he's allowed his inaction to define his identity, preventing him from becoming all that he could be. Fear of the unknown, of what could happen, defined him for so long it was enough to suppress his want to explore for his entire life up to this point. But when he learns enough about the truth of his reality, the action he would take would allow him to evolve and reshape himself. In a transcription of a public lecture given by French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, he argued that man is nothing else but the sum of his actions and what he purposes himself to be. He saw existentialism as a result of action which dictates that there is no legislator for a person's life, that the entire responsibility for a man's existence is squarely upon his own shoulders, and therefore it is only by self-deception and confinement of one's self-despair that it can be described as hopeless. Despite his fear of water and what might lie beyond, Truman redefines himself by taking action and doing what he previously thought was impossible. In a sea of nothingness, he gleams with joy in what's to come. Even when Christoph tells Truman that his life was nothing more than a form of entertainment for others, Truman shows us the real reason why we admire him. He sees the meaningless nature of his existence as an opportunity for freedom, exploration, and discovering all the good things there could be. Standing in the light of this truth, he smiles, takes a bow, and embraces the void. Fearless. Hold on. Okay. As much as I'd like to end on a high note, there's one more thing I'd like to point out. While Truman's arc ends on a triumphant note, when the credits roll, this plays. This choice in score has left me wondering what the motivation was for the steep change in tone from the victorious bell-filled anthem to a serious, almost ominous vibe. Then I realized, it's the same piece of music that plays over Truman sailing through the artificial storm. Now this might just be a choice based in convenience in which director Peter Weir might have decided to simply use one of the original pieces of music again and call it Wrapped. But an idea comes to mind. Specifically, I'm thinking of the nature of the show's viewer base, and I'd say there's a bit of cognitive dissonance present. They support the show by watching, and they seem to care about what happens to Truman. But as Truman nears his escape, they cheer him on, knowing that if he escapes, the show will end. They're aware that he's essentially a prisoner, held by invisible chains, living for their entertainment. Now, Truman has left his would-be perfect world and has to adjust to our contradictory, selfish, and in some ways, equally shallow reality. He's navigated and survived one storm, only to end up in another. What's worse is for how much the fans of the show cared for Truman, their affection is superficial, as the story ends with a casual exchange.
You want another slice?
No, I'm okay.
What else is on?
Yeah, let's see what else.
Where's the TV guy?